Hi, Coach. Thanks for joining us today. When you're ready, go ahead with the opening statement, and then we'll go to Tyler James with the first question.
Tyler James, go ahead with the first question.
All right, go ahead, Tyler.
All right, let's do this. Coach, I had a few different things I wanted to ask you about, or a couple different things. First one was Zeke Correll. What has he done to put himself in a position to be the starting center and also confident enough to move Jarrett Patterson elsewhere? And the other topic was Chad Bowden. His name has come up in a number of different interviews with recruits. What is his role on the staff, and what is the vision for how he can help the program?
Let's start with Zeke. At this time, I don't think Zeke has, given us this, anything other than what we saw last year, where he did a nice job. But we're not closing our minds towards, any combinations on that offensive line. So, and I say that, Tyler, because I want to keep it competitive. Like, I don't want to give Zeke the starting job at center because I want to keep competition. So Zeke's not given that offensive position. He's not the starting center yet. I mean, Jarrett Patterson can go play that center position, and we're a good football team. So, and I'm not just saying that for, to get it out in the media and you guys can, Coach Kelly's keeping it's true. I mean, I've got to keep him growing and getting better. He's got a lot to work on. And I'm not ready to tell Coach Quinn that, we're penciling him in the fall. I mean, Patterson can go play that position in a heartbeat, and we know what we're going to get. And that's why we're seeing a lot of Rocco Spindler at guard. That's why we're seeing a lot of, Kristofic and Gibbons and guys of that nature. So we're keeping our options open. I know that's a long answer to the question, but I want to be clear. I want to keep competition in the spring. Nobody's granted that job. The second question was about
Chad Bowden.
Yeah, Chad, right. So Chad is an offensive analyst. We added offensive and defensive analysts that are focused primarily in recruiting efforts. And I guess the best way to put it is that they're, the offense and defensive coordinators in recruiting, and that they get the whole staff together. They coordinate the efforts in terms of recruiting and making sure that they're touching base with recruits daily. And that's not a 9-to-5 job. That's late at night. That's being on their schedule. So he's in touch with, all those defensive recruits in their time zone, if you will. So you're probably hearing a lot of them because he's built strong relationships with all those defensive players and done a very, very good job.
All right, we're going to go to Eric Hansen next.
Hi, Brian. Both of my questions are about the secondary. The first one is, what's Houston Griffith been like? What have you seen from him since he made the U-turn out of the transfer portal? And the second one is, and I asked you about young guys a couple weeks ago and you weren't quite ready. As far as the secondary players, who's flashed for you? Who do you think might be in the mix among those young players in the secondary?
So let's talk about Houston. I've felt like, two things needed to happen for Houston, right? Opportunity, and then making the best of the opportunity. And I think, what is making the best? What does that equal? And for me, I think a lot of that has been just awareness of the situation that he's in, and using what I think is outstanding athletic ability and applying it to the particular situations. And I think he's doing that very well this year. I think at times, he was using a hammer when he needed to use a screwdriver on particular plays. Here, where we're at now, I just feel like he's playing the game with a high football IQ. And to me, it just is coming easier to him. Making plays on the ball. We've always seen the physical tools that he's had. I just think he's a lot more confident. He has the opportunity, so he's getting a lot of work and a lot of reps. That has to be obviously taken into consideration because he didn't get as many reps as he's getting now. But I think this football awareness piece is really starting to show itself as to why he can continue to excel and ascend at the position. The guy that's really standing out for me is Cam Hart. He was very raw last year. As you know, he was playing with a bad shoulder, so there was some limitations. He had the shoulder repaired in the off season, and he's really coming into his own. He's as you know, elite in terms of his length. He's got a really strong skill set, and to play the corner with that kind of size and athletic ability, he can be a really, really good football player. He's still learning. There are still parts of his game that he's got to clean up, but I sit here today at, 6 practices in, he's making really good progress, at that position.
Next question is going to come from John Finneran.
Hey, Brian, I wonder, you gave us a nice assessment of the secondary and some things. I wonder if you can assess the rest of your defense, the linebackers and the linemen, what you've seen from those guys as they embrace what Marcus is trying to put in. What other players are standing out for you? And then my second question is your assessment of the leaderboard after the second round of the Masters.
Yeah. We're getting a lot of really good play on the defensive line. There's a lot of depth there, as you guys know, across the board, inside out. Howard Cross is very difficult to defend. He's just great leverage, great first step quickness, very difficult to block. Kurt Heinisch is, a guy that, sometimes you think, oh, it's another spring, year for Kurt and he can take it off, but he's had a nice spring. And the guys that you would expect, I think, are both Adiomola is really pleased with both of them getting better. I don't think there's a guy on the defensive line that we would say, man, we're disappointed in them. They're not ascending. They're not getting stronger. They're not putting in the time. Jordan Botello is showing up all over the place. So really pleased with the depth there. And there's so much depth at that linebacker position as well. I think Marcus is very pleased with that front seven in terms of what they're able to provide for us on a down in and down, and it allows him to be really multiple in what we're seeing, from 4 down to 3 down.
All right, we're going to go to Tim Priester next.
Brian, I'm going to jump back to the secondary. In the videos, we've seen a lot of Walters and Riley and Barnes, your early entry freshmen. What have you seen from them, number one? And what was your pitch to get Houston Griffith out of the transfer portal and back on your practice field?
Yeah, so let me address the mid-years. As I told our staff as a group, I'm not interested in bringing in mid-years to see them on the sidelines, or let's not bring them in. So we're going to sacrifice even reps for veteran players to make sure that we give these kids even more reps than they've earned. Because look, if you're going to bring them in at mid-year and you're going to put them in a grinder, if you will, in terms of, they should be in high school, but they're now in, a college academic setting as elite as Notre Dame. And you've, already put them in the weight room and we've pushed them hard. let's let him get out on the football field and get reps. I mean, this is what they love to do. And if they can't enjoy playing football, why bring them in at mid-year? You know, and so we're just piling on reps, and they're loving playing football. It's probably, they haven't earned all the reps, but that doesn't really matter. I want them to have so many reps that when they come into camp, it's like they've had a full year. So I know you're seeing a lot of them. I don't want to mislead anybody by watching the film saying, boy, they must be, you know, ready to start for Notre Dame. We're just trying to give them as much work as possible. They're all making progress. But I wouldn't read too much into it and saying, well, this guy's ready to start or this guy's ready to do this or that. We just really want to make sure they get a ton of work so we can put them in a good position. You know, Houston and I had a conversation. There were no promises. We didn't promise him a starting position. All we said was that we believe that this is the right place for you. And we want you to be here. So I think this was much more about Houston's decision to want to be here, and then articulating to him our want to be here. And that was not only me, but, you know, Marcus, you know, had the same conversation. Myself and Marcus, you know, talked to him on the phone and said, we want you to be part of what we're doing here in 2021. So, you know, both of us being really clear that he's part of our plans, and then him making the decision that, okay, if they want me and I'm part of the plans, then I'm going to be staying at Notre Dame. And that's kind of how that went down. Tim.
All right, next question is going to come from Patrick Engel.
Hey, Brian, we talk about being multiple on the defensive fronts and with more 3 and 4-man fronts. How much does that affect the linebackers in case of where one linebacker might be better when it's a 3-man front, given the difference in responsibilities versus one guy is more useful in a 4? How much of a consideration is that when you go into mapping out defensive identity?
Yeah, it's a good question, Patrick. In years past, it would have mattered. It doesn't matter because we're moving the front so much. We haven't moved the front as much in my time here as much as we move it now. So what does that mean? You know, if you didn't move the front and the 3 down, those inside backers got to take the guards on straight on. And it's bully ball. It's big boy ball inside. But we're moving the front so aggressively. So those backers then become single gap players again, much like out of a 4 down front. So it doesn't matter whether it's 3 down or 4 down because we're moving the front and manipulating it up front so much. And with that kind of movement, those backers can be, you know, single gap players, and it doesn't matter whether they're in 3 down or 4 down.
All right, next question is going to come from Pete Sampson.
Brian, I was curious about the development of Isaiah Foskey. If you're seeing sort of more and more of, okay, this can be a one-on-one winner on the edge for us as a pass rush, and then just sort of like overall his career arc with you guys. You know, a tight end, defensive end in high school. Where you feel like he's made the biggest jump from when he showed up 2 years ago?
Yeah, we're still in the work in progress with Isaiah, and I will say that in a sense of we know what he can do off the edge, right? He's got the ability to win off the edge. There are some things that we have to continue to work on with him in terms of play after play on the field. And that's kind of modifying and getting to know players now that they're playing a lot more reps, how we train some of our players. We have to kind of tweak things a little bit now that they're in a much more of a full-time role. You know, he was much less in terms of reps last year. This year he's getting a lot more reps. So we have to look at, you know, how he responds to more of a workload. And so we have to do some things a little bit differently with him. And we're kind of right in the middle of that process of molding him into the kind of player that we want him to be physically. And I don't mean putting on more weight or taking off weight. A lot of this has to do with some of the science that we use, some of our sports science and Omega Wave and GPS to help him play at his optimal level, play in and play out. And so we're right in the middle of that in terms of getting him to his optimal level. And I think we'll have a really good, I think, base level by the time we get through spring in terms of how he trains in the off season to get him to be the elite player that we want him to be going into the fall.
All right, and our last question is going to come from John Brice.
Hey, Brian, a quick two-parter here. You're almost at the midpoint of spring. How do you assess where your quarterbacks are right now, and what's the key for them kind of over the back half of the spring? And then the second part would be a little bit more on your philosophy with mid-year enrollees and kind of force feeding them those reps. How have you evolved your philosophy through the years, especially as you guys have been better able to get more and more guys at the mid-year?
Yeah, a lot to that question. I think that from the quarterback standpoint, I think the guy, if you want to say who's made the most progress, it's probably Tyler Buckner, just because he hasn't played, or he hadn't played a lot when he got here. His motion is really fluid. He's throwing the ball, very well. But he's learning a lot, right? He's got a lot to learn about, our offensive structure and just the nuances. He knows football. He's very smart. Tremendously smart, by the way. You tell him something, in a meeting, and his recall is quite amazing. But just because it just doesn't happen naturally. He needs reps, but he's made a lot of progress. I think Drew's done very, very well. And Jack has been, what we thought, Tommy and I, what we thought when we got him. Here's a guy that's played a lot of Big Ten football, played in the Rose Bowl, sees the field very well, stronger arm probably than I thought, and sees the field exceedingly well, especially from the pocket. He's a guy that stays in the pocket, hangs in there, throws the ball, delivers it, and manages himself extremely well. So we're really pleased with where we are and where we're moving with the quarterback position. Ronnie Paulus got a lot of work today, made some nice throws. So, all in all, we're really happy. The mid-year is kind of where I kind of, alluded to a few minutes ago, is that they need to come in here, obviously, and get their feet wet, but I want to make sure that they leave the spring going, man, I got a lot of football, and I know where I need to go to if I want to be part of a championship football program. And so it's important that they get a lot of work, and we're making sure that happens.
And Coach, before you go, just to follow up on Finneran's second question, do you have a guy that you're pulling for in the Masters this weekend?
To me, the Masters always is about, can we get a very competitive situation, around Amen Corner, right? To me, it's not the individual as much as the tournament itself. Can you create an atmosphere, around Amen Corner? And because, when I've played there, the course is easy. So, when I play it, I shoot under par every time. So I just like to watch these guys make a mess of themselves, because, for me to play golf at Augusta with the ease that I play it and do this job, I just think, well, why can't these guys play better golf on Sunday? But anyway, I'm obviously full of shit too. You know that, right? I played there, and I'll tell you what, there was nobody there, and I was nervous on the first tee. So I can't imagine how these guys even get around the course. But I'd probably like to see Jordan Spieth. He's had a tough few years. I wouldn't mind seeing him come out victorious.